Hey everybody, it's John King. Here I am with my weekly market update, and man, what a week that it has been. So we are ending this week with the first jobs report, not the first, the only jobs report of October. So the first Friday of every month is a jobs report. And remember, the Fed cares about two things. The Fed cares about inflation, keeping it low, employment, keeping it high. We all know inflation is coming down. The big question mark we've been talking about is employment, and the Fed has said, hey, we're worried about unemployment going up too much. Worried about job creation decreasing. And so they're paying more attention to the unemployment report. Well, guess what? Today, the unemployment report came out and more jobs were created than expected, to the tune of like 100,000 more jobs than expected. And they revised prior months upwards. So you've heard me say this before. I say it every month. They're estimating this month what the job creation numbers were just based on random sampling of phone calls. And then next month, they will have more information about this month's number and they'll revise it. And then a month later, they'll have even more information about this month's numbers and they'll revise it. They revised the last 2 months up. They're basically saying the job picture is stronger right now than they've been reporting over the last couple of months. There's a lot of weird developments going on here. The first thing a lot of people, the conspiracy theorists, are saying, well, this is because this is the last jobs report before the election. And we're going to see, actually, there might be one right. No, I don't think there is. Yeah, there is. I don't know. Anyway, November 1st is a Friday, but I'm not sure if there's a jobs report that day. The bottom line is there's a lot of conspiracy theorists saying this is the federal government trying to help the current administration get reelected, even though the current president is not running for office. I am not taking a side. I'm not telling you whether that's good news or bad news. That's only for you to decide. I don't know. I hope the numbers aren't being manipulated. Some people believe that they are. I'm told, we're all told, that these numbers are raw data and it has nothing to do with politics. The conspiracy theorists will tell you that it has everything to do with politics. You take that as you want, but the numbers are going backwards in a good way. Now, what we need to look at is the big picture, which is we've raised interest rates super, super high. The Federal Reserve has raised interest rates super, super high. And rates now have to go down because the market is normalizing. And the problem is, everybody except the Fed is changing rates before the Fed changes their rates because they're trying to get ahead of it. They're trying to predict what the Fed is going to do. And so everybody predicted the Fed was going to have to lower rates significantly because we were headed for a hard landing. Hard landing means we end up in a recession. We end up with lots of job losses, which means that the Fed has to drop rates a whole lot. And that's what the market predicted between July 31st and September 15th. And now the Fed lowers the interest rates. And guess what's happened since then? They've gone up. Rates right now are the highest that we have seen, definitely in the last 45 days. I'm going to show you the 10-year Treasury because the 10-year Treasury moves very similar to mortgage rates. And the Fed doesn't control the 10-year Treasury. The Fed changes rates every 6 weeks. The 10-year Treasury changes every day and multiple times a day. So let's look at what's happened with the 10-year Treasury. And I'm just going back right here to back in May. Okay, so here we got March, April, May, and then we're hitting June, and then we're hitting July. And by July 23rd, we hit our peak. And the rate started going down, 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 down. By July 31st, we're right here. We're at the same level on a 10-year Treasury today that we were on July 31st. Literally, the last 2 months have been erased. We saw rates drop significantly after July 31st through August 4th and 5th. They were low, came back up some, and then you see that the peaks end up being lower, and we go down, and the peak is lower, and then we go down, and here we are on September 15th, right before the Fed lowers interest rates, and the rates hit their bottom. And then the Fed lowers the rates, and everybody says, great, rates should go down from here even lower. They haven't. They haven't gone down a bit. As a matter of fact, they've climbed significantly, a little bit of a drop on Monday. And then this week, 4 consecutive days of rates increasing, and we lost all of the ground we had over the last 2 months. Now, is this the end of the world? Is this the end of the opportunity to buy a house at a lower interest rate? Is it the end of the opportunity to refinance? No, it's not. But it's going to be highly, highly volatile. There's an old saying in the mortgage world is with rates is whatever the Unemployment report does, so goes the rest of the month. The unemployment report was bad news for mortgage rates. So goes the rest of the month. That's the old adage. So there's a lot of argument to say if you're looking to buy, if you are in contract and you're waiting to lock, this says this is not going to be a good month, but you're already in contract. You found the right home. So what do? Do you cancel it? No, you just lock it in. The sooner the better. Generally speaking, we've got a couple of reports coming up, the inflation reports, but the inflation reports aren't going to make a big difference because we already know inflation is low. The only thing that could happen is if the inflation reports say that inflation is going back up, which would make this worse. The thing the Fed is paying more attention to now is unemployment. And today is the biggest unemployment report of the month, and it is not good news for mortgage rates. So I need you to understand we're going to see a huge amount of volatility. I think we're going to see rates in the low to mid sixes. They could climb into the high sixes between now and the end of the year. I think we're going to see interest rates continue to go down. I think that we have to get to what is called the normal rate. Now, that's actually a technical economic term. And the normal rate is the rate that is not too high to slow down the economy and not too low to spur the economy on. So it is the normal rate. Okay. The normal rate isn't known until you get there, but everybody agrees the rate that we are at right now is too high. It's holding the economy back. So we know the Fed has to keep lowering interest rates, but I need to get it out of your mind to say, oh my gosh, let's wait until November then, John, because the Fed's lowering rates in November and that'll cause this to be fixed. That isn't true. The Fed lowered rates right here, and mortgage rates and 10-year Treasury have climbed almost every day since then. So stop thinking that, oh my gosh, the Fed is controlling mortgage rates. They don't control them. They influence them. But we try and get ahead of what the Fed is doing. We're trying to predict what the Fed is going to do. And so don't wait until it happens. There's an old saying in the stock market when you're investing in stocks, you buy on the rumor, you sell on the fact. You buy when the rumor is that Apple is going to release something amazing and everybody's going to love it, and that makes the stock price go up. And then the fact comes out and Apple says, it was good. We made profit, but it wasn't as good a profit as everybody expected. So they didn't beat expectations. That's what matters. We had expectations of what the Fed was going to say or do, and they didn't beat our expectations. And so now our expectations had to come down and interest rates had to go up. Okay. Now I want to shift to what I see happening in the home housing market. We're continuing to see a very, very strange final few months of the year. I'm talking to people whose houses are beautiful and they've been on the market for 45 days with almost no offers. They're seeing people walk through the house that are saying, this house is nice, but I really need something with a fifth bedroom. And a particular seller I was talking to says, well, didn't they know when they looked at it online that it didn't have 5 bedrooms? And then somebody else walks through that house and says, this is nice, but really I need 2 smaller houses instead of 1 bigger house. And the seller says, I don't get it. I don't understand. Don't they know what they're looking at? And I said, here's what I think is happening. I think there's not enough houses on the market. And so they're kicking tires. They're walking through the car dealership and they start at the Toyota dealership and then they end up at the Maserati dealership. And then they go to the Ford dealership and then they go to the Lamborghini dealership because, well, I'm out here looking. I might as well look at everything because there's very little to look at. There's not a lot of new houses coming on the market. And so people are just walking through to see maybe this one will work. And it's giving sellers some false hope. It's giving sellers some hope that, oh my gosh, I'm going to get an offer because I've got a lot of showings and they're not getting any good feedback. As a seller, that is super frustrating. As a buyer, it's hard because I'm talking to my buyers, especially my Dream for All buyers that have a ticking time bomb that they have to purchase by a certain deadline. And I'm hearing, John, there's just not enough houses out there. There's nothing new coming on the market. Well, they're the ones that are out kicking the tires and looking to see, maybe I'll look at that one again. Maybe I can make it work. Okay. That's the challenge we're dealing with right now is there's just very little happening. Doesn't mean that it is shifting to a buyer's market or a seller's market. It's kind of a stuck market. It's what we had when interest rates started going up and nobody wanted to do anything. Sellers didn't want to sell. Buyers didn't want to buy. Everybody was frozen. It wasn't anything except a frozen market. We're kind of in a frozen market to some degree. We're kind of in a market where people are paralyzed by overanalysis, by thinking about, well, wait a second, rates have gone up and I'm going to wait again because clearly I can get back to where rates were on September 15th. I'm not going to buy now. I need to wait. But if the right house is on the market right now and nobody else is buying, it's your opportunity to strike, to take advantage of the opportunity to buy a home that suits your needs, that is actually for sale, that you can negotiate with a seller, that you can ask for seller credits. You can have the seller pay your agent's commission. Because I fear next year, as interest rates start coming down more and stabilize, by the way, stabilize is more important. We have fewer transactions right now, not because rates just went up in the last 2 weeks, but because nobody knows what to predict that rates are going to do. If rates just stayed at 6.5%, we could all predict it and we all would feel comfortable. And you just move forward in buying or selling a home. But as they're moving up quickly or moving down quickly, it creates people freezing and saying, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what to expect tomorrow. And if I can't predict what to expect tomorrow, I'm not going to make any decisions today. It's paralyzing the market. Now, you might be one of those people that's paralyzed. You might be fearful about the election and who's going to win, about the economy, about interest rates, about your job. I get it. But unless you are truly concerned about losing your job, this is one of the best opportunities that I think we're going to have during this cycle. Because you have pretty good interest rates. They're still pretty good. We're in the low sixes in most situations, but you have an opportunity to find the home that you want, that your friends back in 2020 and 2021 didn't have the opportunity to do. And if you own a home and you were trying to sell that home and buy another one, be ready for a frustrating process. Be ready for the challenges that are going to come with having really a frozen market. Your best bet is to look at some of the options where you can have essentially an offer from a neutral third party that gives you 6 months to sell to somebody else at whatever price you want. There are programs to do it. I can help you with that. It helps you to buy now and sell later, but it basically is a guaranteed sale, so I don't have to count the payment against your current home. And actually, it might work out beautifully because you buy now, you aren't competing with a bunch of people. You sell in the next 6 months, and now you're in a market where it's, in my opinion, going to be a hotter seller's market, and you might be able to buy in a neutral market and sell in a seller's market. And it doesn't get better than that. All right. Final thing I want to talk about, if there aren't any questions, is Dream for All and what's going on with Dream for All. So last week, I talked about on Friday that I expected the Dream for All numbers to hit because it was Thursday of last week that the first group of voucher winners lost their vouchers expired. Okay. So what I heard through the grapevine was that out of the 1,700 vouchers that were issued, about 200 of them expired. Now, I'm still trying to count the numbers and figure out what that means. They said there are somewhere between 500 and 700 and 800 active buyers out looking. Now, what that tells me is if there were 1,750 that were issued, we have about half of them that have been used. Now, I don't trust these numbers yet. I heard them through the grapevine, so I'm not telling you this is accurate. I'm telling you just what I'm hearing. So if half of the vouchers have been used, what I can tell you is that around 30% of the total vouchers issued have been reissued. In other words, if you were on the wait list in a county where there was 100 vouchers originally issued, on average, we're around 30 to 40%, which means that about 30 to 40 spots on the wait list got vouchers. That's actually pretty good given the fact that everybody had the chance to extend. And I think those people who extended are going to risk running out of time come the end of the year because there isn't likely to be a lot more inventory. So if they're waiting for that exact home, and a lot of them are, there's not going to be a lot of inventory. And that's going to open up an opportunity for a lot of you who are on the wait list. For those of you who have a voucher right now, you have a tough decision to make because you have a golden ticket in one hand, and some could argue to say, do whatever it takes to redeem that golden ticket. And others are going to say, don't make a stupid decision just because you have an arbitrary deadline for a program that is going to cost you a lot of money anyway. I'm hard pressed to give you exact advice on which way to go. What I can tell you is it's an important thing to think about, because I don't expect Cal Haffa to give a second extension to anybody. Who knows what they're going to do? I didn't expect them to give extensions to everybody who asked for them either, but I don't expect a second extension for anybody. So if I was in your shoes, I'd be thinking, okay, how important is home ownership? Why do I want to do this? And what are my alternatives? And if it's important to you to make sure that you can take advantage of this program, then you have to start deciding, when I see a house that is good enough, I need to strike while the iron is hot. I need to figure out what it's going to take to get this offer accepted. We need to start using things like escalation clauses. An escalation clause says, hey, I'm going to offer X amount of money for your home, but I know there's going to be other people writing offers on the home. And so I will automatically escalate my offer $3,000, $5,000, $1,000 above the next highest offer, not to exceed a certain dollar amount. So if there's a perfect home that's on the market for $500,000 and you say, man, I'd pay $550 for this because I really want this home. And you know that you went in strong offering $520, you could offer $520 without an escalation clause. And the seller can say, yeah, somebody else offered $525. So I'm going to take that offer, and they don't even counter. Or the seller does what's called a multiple counter offer that says, hey, I've got 3 people who have offered over asking price. I'm going to counter all 3 of you to give me your highest and best offer. At either point, you might say, okay, fine, I'll bump it to $530. Somebody else happened to bump to $532 and they win. You lost by $2,000, and that was your opportunity to utilize your voucher. That was your opportunity to own a home. That was your opportunity to build a better future for your family than maybe what you had when you were growing up. Give some stability, build some wealth, pass on generational wealth to your children and your children's children. That house might have been that opportunity, and you missed it by $2,000, and you wouldn't have known. You wouldn't have known until after it closed escrow, and then you checked the records and said, oh my gosh, I was only off by $2,000. Now, an escalation clause says, hey, and talk to your realtor about this. An escalation clause says, hey, I am willing, I'll counter, I'll do my highest and best. My highest and best is $530. With an escalation clause that says, I will go $3,000 above the best offer you have, not to exceed $550. Now, the risk is the seller might reply and say, I refuse your escalation clause and I counter you at $550 because you just showed your cards. You just showed that you're willing to spend $550,000 for the home. So that's a risk that you are taking. But oftentimes it works to your benefit. It's a risk. You're taking a calculated risk. And you can say, look, I offer that escalation clause. You offered $530 with a $3,000 bump over the next closest, the next highest offer up to $550. And that person beat you by $2,000. They'd offered $532. Guess what? Your offer automatically goes to $535. If somebody else's offer comes in at $538, your offer automatically goes to $541. Now, you also could have a listing agent that's not very ethical, and they write an offer at $547 from somebody that's a straw buyer, knowing that that would automatically make your offer $550. There's problems with things like this. You're taking risks, but you have to decide if this is really what you want. There are ways for us to work together to accomplish those goals. All right. Hunsu has a question. Is holding a house for 30 years and refining at the lowest interest rate, even if waiting longer, truly the best way to maximize the benefit? If you're talking about the benefit of the Dream for All program, I don't think that's a maximization of the benefit at all. Like, I think that you're refining at the lowest interest rate. I guess the question is, how do you know when the lowest interest rate happens? Like, you don't know when you hit the bottom until you move up off the bottom and it goes higher. So it's impossible to say. I don't know many people that hold any homes for 30 years. If you hit that 30-year mark, you still have to pay back the state, and you have to pay them back the original money they gave you, plus the percentage of whatever it's grown over that time. There is a cap to how much you pay them. So if you kept it for 30 years, I guess that cap would work to your benefit. But I think I understand where you're coming from, and no, I don't think that way. I think that if you're going to find a house that you're willing to stay in for 30 years, you might be shopping for too expensive of a home. You might be looking in the wrong spot, because most homeowners, they sell in every about 5 to 7 years, maybe 10 years at the most on average. Now, that's going to be different from the people who bought in 2020 and 2021 that got a super low rate. They might keep their homes a lot longer. But there's a concept called the housing ladder that says you start on one rung and you move up a rung and you move up a rung and you move up a rung. And if you're looking for a 30-year perfect home, that could be stopping you from finding a home, and it might stop you from getting into the market. That's why we have the term starter home. So I'm not sure if I'm going down the right track here, Hansu, but that's my reaction to kind of what you're proposing here. I think that if you're waiting to refinance at the lowest rates, you're going to miss out, because you're never going to know if it's the lowest. It's just like people who waited and didn't pull the trigger on September 16th because they thought, well, the Fed just lowered rates, we're going to see rates go even lower. They missed out. Will they have another opportunity again? Sure. But if they were in contract for a home and they were supposed to close on October 15th, and they said, oh, I just got in contract on September 15th and I'm supposed to close October 15th, and I'm going to wait 2 weeks to see if it goes lower, it backfired. It backfired. So you got to be careful about waiting for the perfect time, because you don't know it's the perfect time until it's too late. It's like buying airline tickets. When you're shopping for airline tickets every day, you see a price and you're like, oh man, it just went down from yesterday. I'm going to wait. Hopefully it'll go down tomorrow. But maybe today was the lowest it's ever going to be. And you don't know that until it's gone up. So you have to make a decision in the short term to say, okay, is it worth doing the refinance now based upon the benefits I'm getting? And yes, having Dream for All changes that math, because now you know you only can do it once. The second time you do it, you have to pay back to the state. That's not a bad thing, because it means you no longer have a partner sharing your appreciation, but it does mean your loan amount is bigger. So therefore, the drop in interest rate you got from refinancing may not lower your payment at all. It might even cause you to have a higher payment because you're borrowing more money. But you just bought out your partner. If you don't have to worry about your partner getting a portion of your appreciation. All right, guys, I know we covered a lot. I don't see any other questions. Hopefully this has been helpful. Please know I am interviewing for the job of being your lender. If you're looking to purchase a home, refinance a home, use down payment assistance, buy a $1 million, multi-million-dollar mansion, I'm your guy. So scan this QR code right here. Let's get the process started. I would be honored to help guide you through the loan process. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.